Hello, this is Dr. Natalie Lenore Blackman coming back to you with Abiding in the Secret Place. Yesterday we were talking a little bit about self and self as a seed, and we have in this series correlated soul and self as one and the same. Self can also be connected to ego, okay? And self, or the soul, contains the mind, the will, and the emotions. And in general, emotions or the soul or reasoning, that tends to rule a human, okay? Humans are not mere animalistic in nature, like we're not as ruled by our body and or our flesh, but some are. But in this abiding in the secret place, we're trying to get to a place where we're ruled by our spirit, not our soul. And our spirit is that which is made perfect through the Father, okay? That is the place where Christ comes through us, where He resonates through us. It's the place where the kingdom of heaven is stored, okay? And that kingdom of heaven was planted in us, okay, just like a seed. And the scripture correlates the kingdom of heaven to a seed. And it was planted in us in a spiritual DNA, okay? So just like we have natural DNA, we have spiritual DNA. And we're going to get into that at some point. But right now, we're trying to prep our soil or our soul to produce a harvest that will sustain us, okay, in the coming days, months, weeks, years in the outside world, okay? Now, I didn't mean to say that our soul will sustain us. Our spirit will sustain us, but the soul has to be under submission to that spirit, or we will not be able to withstand the things that we will likely have to face, okay? So we talked about if the pandemic with a virus shut the entire world down, okay? Shut the world down through self-preservation. What will happen next, okay? And self, if it's producing a harvest of fear, if it's producing a harvest of anxiety, if it's producing a harvest of anger, frustration, depression, self-preservation, self-sufficiency, if a person is living out of that state, then external stressors are only going to make those conditions worse. So we're trying to get into a place where we will be sustained. And the safest place a person can be in this crazy world that we're living in is the secret place, okay? And that secret place is defined as abiding under the wing of our Creator, under His shelter, under His strong tower, where we are safe and protected, and where we can hear His voice, okay? So going back to self, we talked about self as being a seed, and in order for a seed to produce a harvest, it goes through a phase of germination. And in that phase of germination, the seed itself dies. Okay? And so we talked about the dying to self. And dying to self, if we saw ourselves as the seed, right, that's going to produce a harvest, is laying down our will, our plans, our desires for those of the Father. And I found another scripture. It's 1 Corinthians 15:36, and it's a little harsh for some. It says, "You fool, that which you sow does not come to life unless it dies." That's pretty strong language there. So in that scripture, I think we're able to see the importance of dying to self to abide in the secret place. I wanted to give you another little analogy. When I think of self-preservation, right, the word that stands out to me the most is preserve, okay? Self-preservation, to preserve, right, oneself or one's ego. That is the natural state of the human being. It naturally wants to preserve self, okay? That preservation could be equal to mummification, okay? And mummification, right, was an art that was used to preserve the dead. We know it mostly with Egyptians, but it has been linked to many other cultures, okay? But the reason the Egyptians were so big in mummification and preservation of their dead was because they had fear of the unknown. They didn't know what was in the afterlife, okay? But they wanted to be prepared the best that they could, according to their religion, all right, for the afterlife. But the preservation itself, the mummification, right, is a basic fear of the unknown. The fear of the unknown, or the fear of not knowing what was going to happen in the afterlife, resulted in the process of mummification. It was believed in their religion that if the body was preserved, then the soul and the spirit could move into the next life, receive judgment by their god Osiris, and then based on that judgment, live in another life and or die. Okay? So that process of mummification came from a lack of understanding of the afterlife, but also it developed out of fear. And so when Jesus came and taught on the earth, he came to destroy all of the misleading religions, okay, of humanity. Because God the Father, our Creator, longs and has always longed for his children to be in the secret place. So that is why the scripture is so polar opposite to some of these ideas, right? Instead of preserving self, instead of preserving the body, we are told we must die. The self must die to produce a harvest. And that is so important for us to understand before we go into the rest of this year, because we're trying to prepare our soil, right? We're trying to prepare our soil. We're trying to allow God to be the gardener and root out everything in our soil that would produce a harvest of fear, of anxiety, of depression, of self-preservation, self-sufficiency. And so in order to do that, we have to see ourselves as a seed and know that self, or the ego, the liver element is what we're talking about in the spring, right? That ego must lay down its ideas, its plans, what it thinks is right, okay? That's what religion teaches, is like what it thinks is right. And say clearly, the creator of heaven and earth, clearly he knows what is right. And so submission is going to be a big part of abiding in the secret place. The orphan spirit, which we have gone over in the last few sessions, is a huge deterrent for the ability to submit, okay? It keeps us in a place of self-preservation, a place of self-sufficiency, and it enables ego to thrive because it thinks that the only way it can survive, right, is to depend on itself. So praying the orphan spirit prayer is extremely crucial in getting to this place of being able to submit, this place of dying to self is so important in abiding in the secret place, where we can experience the perfect love. And the perfect love will cast out fear of the unknown, fear of death, fear of the future, fear of what we can't control, fear of failure. I mean, the list of fears can go on through eternity, right? I mean, there's phobias that, we don't even know exist because fear is so prevalent. But the seed must die to produce a harvest, to produce more seeds, and to thrive and to reside in the secret place. And it will be worth it. I hope you're as excited about this journey as I am. And I hope if this blessed you, you will hit the like button and subscribe. I'm looking forward to continuing our talk on self, as very soon we will be moving into the summer element, or what I call the summer of love, the heart element. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.